And I had to be very graphic because I was angry. I said, let me tell you about him. I don't care about his conduct. That's just another sign. And I went like this.
That's the partial birth.
Partial birth abortion. They hold the baby's head inside the womb.
The Europeans do not know what goes on in our country. And this is why, even on Rush Limbaugh last night, on our second trip back, we're listening to a rerun. And he said, we're the laughingstock of Europe. They call us prudes. They have no idea.
We should only be.
They have no idea what goes on in our country. I mean, you cannot condone murder. You cannot condone murder. And we are now at the point where even those providers call it murder. They call it legalized murder. It is murder.
And women are saying, I have the right to kill my unborn child. They're no longer even saying fetus. What has happened to a nation? What has happened to my country? I said to them, with tears coming down my face, for the first time in my life, I am ashamed to be an American. Never have I been ashamed. I am a patriot. I love my country. It's the best country that there is, and I am ashamed to be an American because we are saying the things we're doing. Or are we saying it? Is it that we're not speaking up? Are we again in the time of Pilate and Jesus and Barabbas? How many did not speak up that day? How many did Mary have to look at who stood there silent while they said, give us that murderer and that thief and that pervert? How many said nothing out of fear or apathy? Are we in these times? Do we know our history? Do we know our heritage? If I were to come up to this little baby that was over here and take my hands and choke him to death, I would have at least 100 of you jump me. And yet none of us are doing anything about these babies, these innocent babies. And this man vetoed a bill to stop partial birth abortion. Read about what that is. The baby's arms and legs are out, and he's struggling to be born. You can't tell me it's a fetus anymore, guys. And this is what he did, and we voted him in.
And this is what priests and nuns, they're apologizing for the behavior of the people of the United States who are against him for his latest thing. They don't think about what has this man done. I mean, the first thing I remember in 1992, day after the election, the night of the election, and I don't watch Protestant television very much, but I do remember that Pat Robertson was the only voice that was not a liberal media that you could listen to, and he said, we sold our country out, we sold Jesus out for the almighty dollar. We sold Jesus out. And in New Orleans, which is where we were living at the time, the head of the Right to Life made a statement. And they said, well, what do you think? Because his very first act was to wipe out, his executive order was to wipe out all the things that Reagan and Bush had in the government where against abortion, federal funding for abortion, and he immediately got rid of those. And she said, well, we know for sure that for the next 4 years, now it's 8 years, we cannot look to the government for help. We're going to have to count on men's hearts changing.
The changing of our hearts.
Changing of men's hearts. And that's really, I could have told that lady that no matter what you get from the government, nothing happens until we change men's hearts. And that's our job. That's the gift the Lord has given us, to be able to touch people and change men's hearts. We've got to put tears in people's eyes. We've got to get the emotions stoked so they understand what is going on. You can't forget, there's an expression in Canada, French Canada, I will never forget. We cannot forget. We must change the world. We must change our country.
What example has my generation given
to the next generation?
To the next generation, and now to this generation? What example are we giving people? What example are we giving?
See,
We're not teaching about the saints. Now, I've had bishops tell us, you're the only ones that are bringing back the saints, thank God. He said, forgive us. We took away the supernatural, and they did, didn't they? They took away our statue of our Blessed Mother.
We were told by the bishops that after Vatican II, there was a systematic effort to take the ritualistic and the supernatural out of the church. Take it out, take it out, take it out. Let's not get into miracles. Let's not get into apparitions. None of those
Padre
things.
Pio was, you know.
And after 30 years, they have pretty much been able to get a lot of this stuff out. But he said, but we never replaced it with anything. We never put anything in its place, and so now our people are running from visionary to visionary, any apparition, any locution, anything that smacks
They're seeking God in their life.
The divine. They're looking for the divine in their life. They're looking for God to touch them, to speak to them.
They say, a saint said, I think it was the Curé of Ars, I'm not sure, but he said, you take a priest out of a community and they will worship animals. If we take God out of our community, what are we doing, people? We're worshiping animals. What is the conversation we hear? Listen, we got a good life. I got 2 cars. You know, my family's eating. Look at us.
Don't rock the boat.
And what do we
Don't
got?
rock the boat.
The latest thing about how much money we've got, yet nobody's saying about how much we owe. You know, I mean, but it's money, comfort. Where is it? Listen, people, we're all standing on a banana peel.
That's true.
The next time I look, I may be looking into Jesus' face. What do I tell my Lord? I will condemn myself to purgatory. You will condemn yourself to purgatory unless we all become evangelists.
We have an IRA. That's what's supposed to support us when we retire. The stock market lost 200 points the other day. Our IRA is down the tubes.
Yeah.
So what do we count on? The corporation has betrayed the employee. We know that. We know that the corporation, it used to be you work for the corporation for 20 years, the corporation is going to take care of you.
Right.
You're going to get a pension, you're going to get a gold watch, you're going to retire. Well, that's not the way anymore. The corporation has betrayed the employee. They're downsizing.
They don't even have the
Anybody ever
honesty.
heard of downsizing? That's the latest way of just getting rid of people. Well,
Say it the way it is. You're firing them. You're firing them.
We're downsizing 15,000 jobs next month. Where do we go from there? And so IBM does this, and Motorola does this, and this one does this. Where are the jobs? Where is it? Where is our security? We only have security in God.
You
It's our
can't
only
buy
security.
a thing in a department store. And I want you to look from now on. That is not made in China. And you want to know something? I'm sorry. With what they do to children as slaves and the human rights violations that they have, no way. And one man said to my husband, listen, if you want to buy a pair of shoes.
If you want any kind of running shoes, you got to buy shoes made in China. They're just not made anywhere else except China. Well, I found a pair that was made in Thailand, and so I felt pretty good about that. But there's nothing made in the United States. Forget that one altogether. But if we can get as close as Thailand, at least that's not mainland China. At least we're not financing the guns that are going to come over here and take us over.
Now, we're not supposed to be political.
Why are we talking? We're not supposed to be talking about this.
I know. You know, my father used to say, you do not speak. My father was a very polite man, very well-mannered, cultured man, and he said, you do not speak religion or politics. It's impolite. And I say to my dad, who's long gone, unless we speak politics and religion, we will have no country,
no world,
and no church, and no world. We have the greatest treasure in the world. We have such a treasure chest. We can walk proud to be Catholic. And an archbishop Flynn of Minneapolis said to catechists and DREs, do not be ashamed to be Roman Catholic. Do not be ashamed to teach Jesus Christ. Let's stop accommodating everybody. Let's be who we are. If I were to interview converts, they would tell you they came into our church because of the richness of our church, not the accommodation that we're trying to do. We are accommodating ourselves into such a state that nobody knows what a Catholic is anymore.
You know, very often we've met some really great converts, especially over at EWTN.
Oh, yeah. And see it.
And we've been on their programs, and we'll say to them very gingerly, you know, with all this going on in the church, why are you coming into the Catholic Church? And said, because that's where the truth is. That's the truth. We've investigated everything. The truth is in the Catholic Church. We praise you, Jesus. But we must get that message out to everybody. Now, when we talk, we do a little bit of doomsday, which we've been doing. But then
I don't think it's doomsday. I think it's reality.
Time out. But
right?
Time out.
Help me out, girls and boys.
Do not
watch it. These are my people.
Do not give in to that pressure. That's manipulation. Okay.
I'll start crying if you don't.
Now, the other night, I got up at 3:30 in the morning. See, a lot of this is jet lag. We just got back from Europe, and a lot of it was getting ready to come here. So Friday morning, I was up at 3:30. And so we were listening to the news at 4:30 in the morning. And something came on, which of itself was kind of negative, but it
very
gave us
negative.
A tremendous, tremendous message. It said, children listen to their mothers. A study.
Surprise.
This is a study, and it had to do, unfortunately, with safe sex. But it said when mothers taught their children, when they spoke to their children, the children listened to their mothers. Now, take away the safe sex aspect of it. Children do listen to their mothers. Jesus, the apostles, listened to Mary. Your children, your grandchildren will listen to you. It's important. You've got to know that you can reach them. You can teach them. They'll listen to you. It's like the little kids in the second grade when we tell them about the super saints and we thought they were off somewhere. And then the mothers and fathers would say, Johnny told me about the stories you told them. It gets through. It does get through. They do listen to you.
One time we were in a church and it was packed. And there was a group right there, all young people, you know.
It was Southern California.
I think they were high school students with their youth ministers. And the audience was just great, like y'all.
And we do say to anybody who is a teacher of a high school student, you have no purgatory time. Right to heaven.
So there they are, and they are deadpan. I mean deadpan. Well, Bob and I were sweating because we just went after them. And after them, we worked because this is the church. The Pope says, this is the church, these young people. We had to get to them. And boy, we felt, we're ineffectual. We kept working and working. We were exhausted when we got off the stage. The next day, we get a call from the youth minister. They represented 5 churches, and we were going to be sponsored by those young people in 5 churches. They looked like they weren't alive, no less listening.
I mean, so bored.
But they weren't. They heard. Listen to me.
And they filled those churches.
Oh.
They filled it. You see, they can do it. If we can get to them, if we can reach them, they can and they will do it. You can get your young people to listen to you.
Now, my mother didn't go past the 8th grade. But my mother had wisdom beyond anything I'll ever have in my life. She had her children's friends come to our house. She didn't care if they messed up and scratched the floor. Let them come there. And my grandmother was great. She told stories.
Tell stories, especially your grandmothers. Tell stories. Your kids love to hear stories.
Now, you wouldn't, those of you who have read We Came Back to Jesus, know that if God can use us, he can use anybody.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
There was a time when we really didn't care about you or anyone else. We were very family-oriented, just our family.
But only our family.
Only ours.
We didn't care about your family, only our family.
That's all that mattered. We did everything right. We were being interviewed in Monterrey, Mexico. And he said, what did you do wrong that caused your son to die of an overdose of drugs? And we said, we did everything right. We played together. We would argue together. Our house was just, it was interesting. We were always together.
There was an excitement because there was tremendous give and take. My son was a natural debater. He used to drive me crazy. Could take either side and win every time.